Hello, future Rossies and pre-med explorers. This is Milena Garcia, your host for Ross University Checking the Pulse, a pre-med podcast. This is our mini podcast featuring facts and information about our medical program, insights from current students, and tips from practicing physicians. Each week, this broadcast will be broken down in small episodes, focusing on one aspect of our program, also having guests talk about their own experiences as students and as doctors. Preparing for medical school in the Caribbean is an exciting moment in the accepted students' lives. It can also be a bit nerve-wracking. My guest today is Dr. Kimberly Brown, emergency physician, public health professional, blogger, national speaker, and best-selling author. Dr. Brown shares some tips on how to prepare ahead of time. Well, welcome back, future Rossies. Thanks for joining us once again. This time, we have Dr. Kimberly Brown joining us. Dr. Brown, thank you so much for joining us. Please, let's take a moment to have you introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, thanks so much, Milena, for asking me to join. I'm really excited. So as you said, my name is Dr. Kimberly Brown. I am an emergency physician, and currently I'm living in Memphis, Tennessee. I graduated from Ross in 2014, and I am a graduate of the University of Tennessee Health Science Center's emergency medicine program, which I finished in 2018.
What was it about Ross University School of Medicine in particular that appealed to you?
I actually liked at the time that the curriculum was a little bit accelerated so that I could have the opportunity to, right, exactly, yes. It still is. So I could finish a little bit early. Now, when I was on the island, that was not an option. I would say that it was just everybody does 4 semesters. That's the curriculum that we're doing. But back then I was looking at it more as an advantage that I would be possibly done potentially early. I was starting in a winter semester and I was hoping to match for the 2014 year to start residency. And I was just short by a couple of months, but it ended up doing just fine in the long term. And so I really liked that about Ross. I really liked, of course, like you said, it's nothing better than knowing a current student. Mm-hmm. So having a little bit of a security blanket, like, oh, I know John's got me under control. Nakia, she's good. You know, she knows me and will tell me the truth about everything. So I didn't feel as alone because as an only child and someone that is literally moving their entire life across the ocean to another place, I didn't want to do that by myself. So to have them there really helped me out mentally. Like I'm just not going to plunge myself into the ocean of nothingness. So.
What kind of academic and or personal support did you receive while you were at Ross?
I received a lot. And I think that's another thing that really makes Ross stand out amongst other schools. So to be very transparent, I almost failed out my first semester. So we have minis, and I think that's still the same. Is that right, Melina?
Correct.
Still the
same.
Still
is,
they have minis,
yes.
That they call their exams? Okay. So we were the second group to go through the Oregon-based system. Mm-hmm. And that's what you guys currently have now. So we learned kind of the fundamentals. We had heme, we had respiratory. So the fundamentals block had 2 minis, 2 weeks apart. Well, 50% probably wasn't a great score. 60 some odd percent wasn't a great score. And so I had never seen my test scores be that low. I mean, I'm like a typical pre-med student that's always done well. Even in grad school, I did well. And so this was kind of the first main med school roadblock, like, okay, there's something that you're doing wrong. And I freaked out. I mean, just like I said before, I'm the only child, or my mother's only child, and I'm going across to another country to study medicine. And everybody knows what I'm doing. I could not come back to the States saying, oh, I filled out my first semester. So I had a breakdown. I cried a lot. Mm-hmm. But then I reached out to Academic Success, which you told me now is called
the Academy for Teaching and Learning, correct. So the ATL, which we done an episode on. So everybody who's listening, please check back the ATL episode so you know what it is that we're talking about.
The Academy for Teaching and Learning, or I'm going to call it Academic Success because that's what rolls off my tongue, since that's what it was called, helped me tremendously. I sent an email. I made an appointment. I had a appointment with a counselor, and I sat down in front of her and I cried. I said, look, I failed 2 exams and I don't know what I'm doing. Apparently I don't know what I'm doing. Whatever you've got for me, I need some help. And she calmed me down after she let me cry. And she's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get on a schedule. You're going to come to some tutoring sessions. You're going to start doing some question sessions. And she told me flat out, Kim, you can't keep studying and having Facebook on and having the TV on and on Skype. And you've got to really learn how to buckle down and focus. And that's something that I had never had to do. And so with her encouragement and her really helping me with my schedule and finding some great tutoring sessions, I almost aced that next exam. I think it was the anatomy and the biochem that got me on that on the second test, but that's what happened. And ever since I had done well. So Ross has really supported me academically because it taught me really how to learn for medical school, because it's a different type of learning. It's a different type of volume that most people have never been exposed to unless you're in like a super serious like math or science field. It's a lot of information at a lot of time, but Ross was surrounded me with academic tutors, anatomy tutors, emotional support, all of those things.
And for everyone listening, Dr. Brown literally wrote the book on attending school in the Caribbean. Her book is called Still MD, 2 Physicians' Advice for International Medical Students and Graduates. Dr. Brown, how do you suggest the students prepare for this trip ahead of time?
So there's a lot of things that are going to go into you even getting to the island of Barbados. Ross will do the vast majority of helping you with the visas, packing lists, things like that. Of course, you can easily book a flight to Barbados on almost any major airline. So all those logistics are pretty easy. What I think people don't talk about enough is the emotional support. And I say that because the year I was about to start Ross, so in 2010, I was having a really tough year. And so to add on, moving to a whole nother country to study medicine was like a whole nother layer to the cake. And so having emotional support, I think, is the biggest thing, because you are going to be away from home, away from your comforts, away from your family, friends, sometimes the common luxuries that you would have while you were at home. So really having an emotional support and emotional plan to really work through things as a student would be really helpful. So if you have friends at home, family, sorority sisters, anybody that you constantly are in contact with, make a plan to keep in contact with them at least regularly. Now, you're not going to be able to text them all day long or, Skype until 5 o'clock in the morning every day. But if you put in your schedule some time that you're going to touch base with your mom or dad or your best friends or your college friends, et cetera, that really helps with the support, because it's a long, semester and things can go by a little bit quick, but still that's time away from people. And you never know what's going to come up, especially if you're first, starting Ross or starting any medical school. Actually, there's a lot that comes up and it's really stressful. So having a small outlet would be really, really important. And I would
they can use it as a study break, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Use it as a study break. I mean, I would kind of build mine around dinner time. So I would go get something to eat from the shacks, which I know you guys don't have now. And then go back to my room or go back to my study area and then just have a quick call or Skype or with someone and then get back to work. Or at the end of the night as well, when I was ready to go to bed, I would just chat with somebody to go to sleep.
No, Dr. Brown, you mentioned how the ATL really helped you recover from your first semester. What are some other tips that you can suggest to be successful in medical school for everyone listening?
I think humility is the biggest thing. I remember just being truly amazed at how much detail goes into the human body. And I would always kind of just think in the back of my head, why is medical school 4 years? This is what is there to learn in 4 years? This is too much time. But I think being humbled by one, my almost failures, and also two, just the actual amazement of what we're learning took me really far. And that's past the island, that's past basic sciences. When you get to your clinicals, when you get to residency, not always just thinking you know everything, and just kind of staying humble and always remembering that you have something to learn will go far in life and not just medical school. I also would say just to be honest with yourself, with what you do know and what you don't know. And if you don't know something, and if someone's asking you, do not lie about it. Say, I'm sorry, I just don't know. I didn't study that. I didn't read that. I didn't get that information, but go back out there and try to find it. So honesty is always the best policy, especially in medicine, because as you will find out later in life, people's lives are literally on the line. So being the most transparent that you possibly can be with yourself, with your mentors, with your patients when it's appropriate, will go far as well. Don't forget any of your passions outside of medical school. If you like underwater basket weaving, please continue to find a way to do that because you're going to be like stressed out. There's so much information to take in. You've got to find other ways to channel your energy, because you'll be sitting in classes for, hours at a time, and then you got to go study. There's got to be a little bit of breaks. So making sure that you're doing something that you love will help you stay connected to yourself, because it's really easy to just kind of get lost in the humdrum of medical school, clinicals and group sessions and all those things. And the last thing I would say is to embrace your weaknesses. Now, not everybody is going to be an anatomy rock star, because I sure wasn't. But you may be really good at something else, like social and behavioral sciences. You may be an amazing interviewer with patients. You may have an extremely awesome bedside manner. You may do physical exam skills really, really well, or you may not. But even if you embrace your weaknesses, if you just work on improving them, that will always make you a better clinician. So don't be afraid to say, yeah, I really suck at biochemistry. I just can't remember the Krebs cycle for the 15th millionth time. That's fine. Just keep trying to work on it, and realize too that you have amazing other qualities that will make you an amazing physician down the road. Anyways, nobody really cares about biochem.
Hey, listen, I think it's a great analogy, because if you think the Krebs cycle is hard now, it's 4 years of Krebs cycles daily. That's how hard medical school is, right? Dr. Brown, thank you so much for sharing all your experience with us. What about any last recommendations or suggestions for our future Rossies?
You know what? I think this year, 2020, has taught me one thing, and it's to just do it. Not trying to infringe on Nike, but if Nike wants to pay me for that, I'm happy to. I love your workout apparel. But to just go for it and just do things. I think some of your listeners may be on the fence of considering applying to a Caribbean medical school. And the worst that could happen is that you get rejected, and you still be in the same position that you were in right now. But what happens if you take that opportunity and you apply and you interview and you get in? So what doors are open to you then? And so that is something that I've really, truly tried to embrace this year. I think Ross has taught me that lesson multiple times. I just went ahead and I just took the plunge, and I said, boom, I'm just going to submit my application. What's the worst that can happen? And a few years later, here I am sitting as an attending. So just go out there and just take the plunge, you guys. It's worth it. It's a wild ride, but it's totally worth it.
And the worst case scenario that you presented, I will tell you, being one of the interviewers at Ross, for the applicants who make it through the interview cycle and get denied, we do a follow-up counseling session and let them know what it was that held the application back. So it's not a closed door for us. It really just means not right now. Here's what you need to improve, fix this, call me back. It might just be retaking the MCAT. It might be just taking that biochemistry class once again, or it could be a post-bac program. It really depends on how much needs to be fixed on the application. But the point is, they will get that feedback from the interviewer. For sure.
I don't know if a lot of other medical schools will do that. So that is really valuable advice for someone who had applied and never got an interview except from Ross. If something, God forbid, had happened to me and I got to the interview and I didn't get the acceptance, that is invaluable information that you can always use to improve yourself and make yourself better. So that's awesome. I'm glad that Ross does that.
Dr. Brown, thank you again for joining us. I appreciate it. Everyone, Dr. Kimberly Brown is the author. Again, her book is called Still MD, Two Physicians' Advice for International Medical Students and Graduates. Now, here we will be giving away 10 copies of Dr. Brown's books to our listeners. You would have to do 3 things for me. You have to go on our website and answer 3 questions. Please email me the questions directly. Number 1 question is, what is our residency match rate for this past year? So the latest residency match rate for Ross University. Question number 2, how many curriculum tracks does Ross have? You heard Dr. Brown comment on the track that she chose. How many tracks does Ross have overall? And third question, why would you choose Ross? That's it. Email me at mgarcia@rossu.edu. And the first 10 people who email me their answers will get a copy of Dr. Brown's book. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Ross University Checking the Pulse, a pre-med podcast. This is Milena Garcia, your host. This podcast is made for you, so let me know what topics you want us to cover on future episodes. You can send me your comments, feedbacks, and requests to mgarcia@rossu.edu. Definitely follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel at Ross Med School, or on Facebook. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, I am working my way to 5 stars, so remember to send me your comments and let me know your ideas. If you're on Spotify, remember to click on the follow button to get our future episodes. All right, see you future Rossies and Pre-Med Explorers next week. This mini podcast is edited and produced by our in-house guru, Chris King.